Introduction to TESOL Class Number 2, ESP, English for Specific Purposes. These are our goals for today. First, we will understand what ESP is about. We're going to see its characteristics, major programs, developing an ESP curriculum, and the challenges of ESP programs. ESP is a movement founded in the 60s based on the proposition that all language teaching should be tailored to the specific learning and language use needs of identified groups of students, and also sensitive to the socio-cultural contexts in which these students will be using English. Most students are adults, and their major areas of interest are academic, occupational, or professional settings. Although you can find ESP programs in countries where English is the native language, it is more popular in EFL contexts, English as a foreign language, where an increasing number of adult students are eager to learn business English or academic English in order to pursue their career or study in English medium education institutions. Overall, there are 4 absolute and 2 variable characteristics of ESP. Let's see the absolute characteristics. It's designed to meet the specific needs of the learner. It's related to content, for example, in its themes and topics to particular disciplines, occupations, or activities. It's centered to the language appropriate to these activities in syntax, lexis, discourse, semantics, and the analysis of this discourse. And it is in contrast to general English. So as you can see, the name says it all. English for specific purpose. It's a very tailored program. Now let's see some variable characteristics. Sometimes this kind of program can be restricted to the language skills to be learned. So sometimes you're going to teach just reading, okay? So you're going to have students that want to learn how to read English for a specific purpose, maybe medical school or law, whatever they need. Also, sometimes it's not taught according to any preordained methodology. That could happen. The main curricular areas of the ESP movement can be categorized in a number of ways. Here we have one possible classification. It's important to note, however, that this figure is far from exhaustive, for there is a remarkable array of ESP courses offered throughout the world. But let's see the main ones. English for academic purposes, EAP. English for science and technology. English for business and economics. English for medical purposes. English for the law. Now, English for occupational purposes. English for professional purposes. Inside it, we can divide into medical and business, and vocational, ESL. Inside vocational ESL, we can subdivide into pre-employment, occupational specific, and cluster. Now let's see some ESP program models. Well, as we can see, there is a wide range of courses and programs in a wide range of locations, always in tune to the language needs, skills, content, and processes required. One of the best articulated and widespread sets of program models in ESL context falls under the EAP, English for Academic Purposes rubric. So let's see. The first one is standalone. This is the most common format. They are reading and writing courses, most frequently taught at the undergraduate level, that enroll students from all academic disciplines. So here we are talking about mixed areas. The content is generally common text types that cross disciplines or texts and writers in specified academic contexts. Adjunct EAP. This model is more related to a single content course. So students are enrolled in both EAP literacy and content course, like biology. So instructors of the 2 courses work together, not in the same room, but they collaborate with one another. Finally, we have team teaching. In this model, the content and the language instructors team teach a group of students. They work in the same room. A good example of an ESP model is the VESL, Vocational ESL. It includes pre-employment VESL. It's related to job readiness, soft job skills. So students practice general job functions such as responding to complaints, making requests, and answering the phone. They may also prepare for job interviews and other initial job skills. It also has occupational-specific VESL. Here, the content is related to a specific job such as nursing assistant or electronic assembler. An example might be a 3-hour class 3 days a week in which students study vocabulary and other skills they will need for their jobs or classes. Cluster VESL. These classes include students from different vocations in one classroom. They practice the 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking, often in a theme-based program. Because of the attendance requirements in many adult schools, this is probably the most common type of program. It also has integrated basic education and skills training VESL. It's an adjunct or sometimes a team teaching model in which the ESL instructor is paired with a professional technical instructor in the classroom to concurrently provide students with literacy education and workforce skills. For example, ESL instructor team taught by a personal care assistant or caregiver. Workplace VESL. This term applies to skills and content of a specific workplace. Often, the employer pays for some or all of the course, and employees are excused during the workday to attend, like an ESL class at school. And finally, we have English for Business. These are the most popular in the English as a foreign language world. Businesses or individuals require classes in negotiation, correspondence, bid and report writing, and in supervising bilingual and ESL or EFL workers. Now we turn to the absolute characteristics to curriculum ESP design. The first thing you really have to do is needs assessment. In every genuine ESP course, needs assessment is obligatory, and in many programs, an ongoing needs assessment is integral to curriculum design and evaluation. This can be done through questionnaires and surveys, interviews of experts, students, and other stakeholders, observation, job shadowing, exploring the linguistic, cultural, and pragmatic experiences of workers as they experience a typical day on the job, also by analyzing learning styles, analyzing how teams work in the target context, etc. All this could be summarized in what ESP literature distinguishes as needs, wants, and lacks. Another thing you need to do is to work closely with individuals in the target situation. ESP teachers need to constantly assess what types of content are really central, how content is used and valued, and the relationship between vocabulary and central concepts. That means collaborating with instructors across disciplines or professionals in the workplace. To prepare an ESP curriculum, you need to adapt and develop methods and curricula. That means being sensitive to the context. What kind of methods are your students accustomed with? Should you change it radically, or should you adapt and provide a good transition? That means taking in consideration your students' backgrounds, goals, and needs before figuring out the goals for the curriculum. It also means understanding the features and discourses of a context by analyzing discourse and its specific functions needed in particular contexts. For example, business, certain verbs, email communication, major types of speech acts in lectures, and even extending it to the pragmatic field, showing, for example, degrees of politeness, etc. The last must to develop an ESP curriculum is to teach skills and strategies for FAR transfer. That means that your ultimate goal is to prepare students with skills and strategies that can be used in the future in different contexts. FAR transfer means the ability to adapt previously learned skills to new future tasks and contexts. How can we do that? By training them in real-world situations and challenges, by providing them opportunities to work directly with experts, by providing problem-based learning, for example, training them to face real-life challenges. Now let's see some issues addressed in ESP program planning. The first issue ESP practitioners need to consider in tailoring a program is the audience and the essential elements of the ESP program needed. So they pose questions like, what are the sources of demand for this ESP program? Who are the clients? What do the stakeholders view as the essential elements for the ESP program they desire? What are the required skills? So sometimes the stakeholder is the government, okay? For example, the vocational ESL, VESL programs in the United States have been developed as complex responses to welfare reform and the needs of funding agencies such as the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. In other contexts, the stakeholders are the students themselves, particularly in private ESL or EFL schools throughout the world, which professionals attend to upgrade their language skills. These students are often very precise about what they want to learn and achieve. Other major stakeholders are educational institutions, particularly universities involved in academic purposes programs, and private companies that need focused English language and skills training for their professional employees. Another issue developing this program is available teachers, because it's so specific. So questions such as what content, skills, and literacies will they be expected to teach? How much teacher training have they completed? Are they linguistically sophisticated? For example, can they discuss how English works and analyze specialized discourses? What types of curricula and approaches are they most comfortable with? Some practitioners, for example, argue that if they can analyze language and discourses and study language use, they do not need specialist expertise. Others argue that at least some familiarity with the student's discipline or vocation is valuable. Authenticity is another issue. Since ESP involves special Englishes and contexts, not general English, efforts to achieve maximum linguistic, strategic, and situational authenticity are made in designing curricula. One way to achieve that is by offering courses on-site in the target location, for example, at a workplace or specific academic contexts. Another way of providing authenticity, although for many controversial and not authentic, is using written or oral discourses that are central, but removed from the target situation in which the students will eventually be using English. In other words, bringing to the classroom target texts or creating situations that the learner will eventually have to deal with. So students learn certain linguistic skills in class, use them in class, and then are expected to transfer that to the real world. Curricular decisions can be a problem. Just like a regular ESL instructor, ESP practitioners have been influenced over the years by trends in applied linguistics and general ESL or EFL teaching when deciding curriculum. Nevertheless, since ESP is a more tailored program, the goal is to meet the specific linguistics and pragmatic needs of students. It is a basic responsibility of an ESP practitioner to be context and student sensitive. Thus, in several EFL contexts, only ESP reading is taught, often using methods such as intensive reading. In other contexts, the concentration is upon oral skills, integrating computer technology, etc. That makes it difficult to adopt a specific textbook, and it may require ESP instructor to constantly contact people involved in the student's context to renegotiate or adjust instruction according to the student's needs. One particular challenge in ESP programs is that students and their sponsors, government, or academic institutions are anxious to see immediate and focused assessment results that address specific objectives. Thus, the demand of assessment, both in terms of formative and summative evaluation, are great. The type of assessment is another issue because it will depend on the context. For example, in vocational ESL programs, interviewing supervisors or the students themselves about language, content, and task proficiency can be more effective than any traditional oral examination or reading and writing test. Well, that's it for ESP today. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in teaching ESP. If so, what field, what area of ESP would you be interested in teaching? Make sure you watch the video. I sent you a link in the email of an interview with an ESP teacher. Thank you, and save your questions to class.